No, because like spending 2 seasons creating an absolutely perfect show to just kind of throw it all away in 6 episodes is so astonishing. It's almost impressive. I spend every single episode of The Vampire Lestat being like, what? What? Like every minute just more confused than I was the last. Now I have all of my general complaints about it that I made about it in my last video, but I would argue that this most recent episode I just saw was probably like the most egregious of them all. Like that was insane. I think the thing that's pissing me off the most about the show is the return of this character. As much as I love this actress so much, and I thought that her acting performance was phenomenal in the second season, right? And the actress who played her in the first season, like I love this character a lot. I thought it brought so much depth to Louis and Lestat's dynamic. Killing her off was a very bold choice, but I think that when they did it, it really worked. Now, bringing her back for this third season, to me, is very cowardly. It's like you made a bold choice because you wanted to turn people's heads and you wanted to have a moment that was gas-worthy, and now you're essentially half-stepping and backing it up. And like, I don't like that. The idea of having the same actress play this kind of stand-in and kind of like a new character that just happens to resemble the other girl to like play as in like a foster in Louis' life already bothered me. Already was like, yeah, feels a little bit lazy, but okay. But in this episode specifically with the seance and bringing her back as a ghost to kind of talk to them from the dead, right? To me was destroying and setting fire to what I believe was a perfect character arc. Was her death sad? Yes, but did it tell an absolute perfect story that had a perfect bow on it? It did. Claudia's story was always marrying Louis, and it was about loneliness, right? It was about trying to find your place in the world, trying to find your people in the world, and the extremes that we will go to try and escape loneliness, and how Louis was that his loneliness was eating him alive. And like a good father, he passed that generational curse down onto his daughter. And Claudia, who has spent her entire life, but very specifically her afterlife, suffering from this loneliness, right? Like she happens to, the happiness of her parents, of Louis and Lestat, comes at her expense, and that's been her truth, right? We finally get to that end of season 2 where she finds a companion and she finds kind of like a soulmate, and she's able to have a kind of a very sad ending, but a happy ending nonetheless, right? She dies, but she dies with her lover by her side. And the assumption is that her story is not complete. Her cycle is not complete, right? She has spent her human life and her vampire life suffering from loneliness, and now she finally has a companion. She finally has someone else, and we can assume that they are together in the afterlife, and this is her happily ever after. So why have her come back in this seance is kind of like a lazy joke on Louis and Lestat to be like, actually, I'm miserable and I'm still really angry and I hate the both of you because I'm actually alone in the afterlife in pain, suffering. It's just a choice that didn't particularly feel meaningful to me as a part of the storytelling. Like, it just felt like you were doing it for shock factor. And again, because you like this actress a lot and you didn't want to get rid of her, which is like, that was the case and you should have never killed her off. If you weren't prepared to commit to this choice, you shouldn't have fucking did it. I think in this version of the story, in Lestat's version of the story, I think so much of the humanity from Louis and Lestat is like stripped away from them, where they don't feel like real people anymore. They feel like caricatures. I think one of the main reasons why this show worked is because it enticed you and it seduced you with the idea of vampire, but then it trapped you with the humanness of it all. And I think this season really lacks the humanness of it all. In my last video about this show, someone pointed out they got rid of all their black writers, and I was like, oh, that was really evident to me in this episode. Like, there was this weird emphasis on race and on her black life and how she has never been happy a single moment in her black life, which is interesting to me because I don't think that much of Claudia's storyline was about being black. And then when she refers to Louis as like, I forgot, nappy-headed something, and I was like, oh, that was weird. It just no longer feels like a storyline written by a black person. And while obviously I make the argument all the time that race affects every single aspect of her life, but I will say in this specific situation, if her anger is equally towards Louis and towards Lestat, what does race have to do with that in particular? Why would this be the moment that she's bringing up race? When like very little about her specific storyline, a lot about Louis' storylines about being black, but very little about her specific storyline is about being black. Things that she's angry about losing her lover, about being assaulted, right? About the way being collateral damage to her parents' relationship. All of those things have nothing to do with being race, right? If anything, a lot of those boil down to just the fact that she was a woman. So why randomly end the speech basically being like, I hate being black? I don't really, it's like, what is that about? The incest storyline between Lestat and his mother, I knew it was risky from the beginning, and I was like, I don't know, the show's been so brilliant with its metaphors and with the way that it's able to represent like internal turmoil in like a physical way, where I was like, maybe they'll be able to pull off this incest and it'll be interesting. To me, I don't think it works. I think it serves zero purpose. I just think it's like there to be sensational, to be salacious. It's there simply for shock factor. I don't think it works at all. And there is a clear moment in this episode where it's supposed to make sense, right? Where Louis finds out about it and is disgusted and is kind of reprimanding Lestat, like, why would you do that? That's so gross. And it was Lestat's moment to kind of explain to us, like, explain the metaphor to us. What is this supposed to represent? Why is it important? And he can't. all he does is get emotionally upset, and he like responds and says that his mother's the only person who's ever shown him an ounce of kindness, which is like, yeah, that's what normal mothers do, but I don't get why that would lead to you fucking her. Why was that necessary? In my personal opinion, I think at season 3 the show has kind of become a parody of itself, where it's trying so hard to steal all the main elements of what it was previously, but it is missing all of the heart and the things that kind of grounded it before. Like, it's kind of a ridiculous watch at this point.